Hey guys, my name is Neel and welcome to Neel Workshop Zone. So in this episode we're going to be talking about the topic probability. So in our previous episodes we talked about statistics, about how to find mode, median and standard deviation method, etc. So if you haven't checked it out, I recommend checking out those episodes. So in this episode we're going to be talking about the topic probability. So without any further ado, let's talk about it. So first of all, what is probability? Probability is a numerical measurement of degree of certainty. So to put it into simpler terms, basically probability is to see the number of favorable outcomes, the total number of outcomes, etc. So yeah, that is kind of the concept of probability. So to understand probability a lot better, we need to understand a lot more concepts as well. So without any further ado, let's talk about them. So first of all, let's take 0 is to 1 or 0 and 1. So in probability, we use 0 and 0 and 1 as the values for measuring the probability of any event or any outcome. We can also use 0 to 100%, but here we take zeros as impossible event. So the reason why we take them as impossible event is because impossible event is basically where the event or there is no outcome of it happening. To put it into simpler words, imagine an example where you roll a dice and the outcome is that when you roll the dice, the outcome should be 7, which is impossible because a dice only consists 1 to 6. So that is an impossible event. Or another event such as the sun must rise in the north and set in the south, which is impossible. So those are impossible events. On the other hand, 1 or 100% depending on which one is sure event. So sure event is an event that is 100% supposed to happen or 100% will happen. So for example, when you roll a dice, the numbers should be between 1 and 6, which is a sure event because in a dice the only numbers are from 1 to 6. So that is a sure event. Same with the 100%. And another example would be when you flip a coin, the sides of a coin should be either heads or tails. It's a sure event because, well, when you flip a coin, the only sides that you can find are heads and tails. And speaking of a coin and heads and tails, a coin is mostly used in examples of probability because a coin is an equally likely event. So what is an equally likely event? Well, an equally likely event is an event where the outcomes are in equal chance. So for example, in flipping a coin, you have equal chances of getting the outcomes. So either have a 50% chance of getting a head or 50% chance of getting tails. And that is basically equally likely outcomes. And that is also the reason why they are mainly used in football matches, cricket matches, etc. to find out which teams has to go first, because there isn't any bias regarding it, and depending on luck, on pure luck, it gets to any team gets to choose whether they can bat first or bowl first. And that is the reason why mostly in cricket games or football games, a coin flip is used to determine the game because it's an equally likely when you flip the coin, the outcome that you get is an equally likely outcome. Now that I've been talking about outcomes and events, you might be a little confused on what is an event and what is an outcome. So now let's talk about an event and an outcome. So what is the difference between an event and an outcome? Well, it's simple. An outcome is the result of a random experiment. So for example, when you conduct a random experiment, that is an outcome. So for example, I don't have a coin here, but when you flip a coin for a single time, it is considered an outcome because, well, it's the outcome of a single random experiment. Or an event, on the other hand, an event is basically a set of outcomes. So for example, when you flip a coin a number of times, like 10 to 100 times, that is an event because it's a set of outcomes. Now I notice an outcome could be an event, but an event could not be an outcome. It might sound complicated, but when you think about it, you'll understand it. So now let's talk about the remaining concepts of probability. So now let's talk about experimental probability. So experimental probability is basically an event, the definition of an event, and the empirical probability is basically the definition of outcome, basically. And now you might be thinking, okay, it's all good about the concepts, but if we get sums, then how do we solve them? Well, obviously we need a formula, right? And there is a formula. So P of E, let me get this, is equals to number of outcomes favorable to E by number of total number of outcomes So this is a formula where number of outcomes, favorable to E by total number of outcomes, where E is the favorable outcome, which is the outcome that you are expecting out of the out of the set of experiments that we have done. I mean the set of outcomes. So now that we have this formula in mind, let's actually try to solve some sums. So I got some questions right here, and let's actually try to solve them, shall we? So the first question is that probability of an event E plus probability of an event not E is equal to dash. So for example, if we have an event where when you add the favorable outcome and the not favorable outcome, what is the answer? Well, the answer is 1. Because, well, let's take the coin flip for example. Imagine you're hoping for tails. The outcome of you getting tails, 50%. The outcome of you not getting tails and getting heads, 50%. So when you add both of them, you get 100%. So when you add the probability of an event E and probability of an event not E, it is equal to 1. Let's take the next question. The probability of an event that cannot happen is dash. Such an event is called dash. So the probability of an event that cannot happen, like I said before, is impossible event. And such an event is called impossible event. And the probability of an event that cannot happen is 0, like I said. So the next question. The probability of an event that is certain to happen is sure event. And such an event is called as sure event, and certain to happen is 1. So the probability of an event that is certain to happen is 1. Such an event is called sure event. The sum of all possibilities of an elementary events of an experiment is 1, like I said before. And the probability of an event is greater than or equal to dash and less than or equals to dash. So the probability of an event is greater than or equals to 0, because like I said, it should be between 0 to 1. So it should be equal to 0 or greater than 0 and less than or equal to dash. So and it should be less than 1 or equals to 1. So the answer is 0 to 1. So that is basically some of the sums of probability. In next episode, we'll be doing a lot more sums regarding probability. So yeah, this is the basic concept of probability and how probability works. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out any new videos. And that's all folks, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.